DC is looking a little different right now. I know that with Congress, sometimes, I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion budget. It takes a long time for everybody to get on the same page. But this time around, there was no continuing resolution. Why do you think that is?
Well, actually, there was. We passed it out of the House. And a lot of people may not be aware of this. It's the same funding levels as the Biden budget. So it's the same funding levels that Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats voted for back in March.
Why do you think they didn't vote for it this time, though?
I think Chuck Schumer feels a tremendous amount of pressure from the far left wing of his party, and particularly from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think there's a lot of people that, including him, that think she might run against him in the next primary. So I think that he kind of painted himself into a corner here, and I think it explains a lot of the more extreme demands that they've made. For instance, wanting to add $1.5 trillion in spending in what really is less than 6 months left in the fiscal year. Well, actually, it's more than that.
Right.
But it's still the Biden budget that he's supported in the past. He voted for 13 times. So I really think it's more about Democratic politics than it is about policy. They want to do some things that we're not going to support. They want to repeal the entire health care section of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which includes the $50 billion that we got into the bill to help states fix their rural health care issues. Life expectancy for rural residents is over 3 years less than it is for people who have better access to health care, have a higher suicide rate, and it's really problematic for women bearing children because there's so few labor and delivery hospitals left in rural areas. And I'm one of the ones who really pushed for this. I grew up in rural northwest Alabama, and this is not a new federal program. It's a fund that will allow the states to come up with their own plans to fix their own rural health care issues. They want to repeal all that, but yet they want to give free health care to people who came here illegally, including the people who have committed crimes since they've been here. And I just don't think the American people are going to stand for that.
Let's talk about impact, because I know that there was millions requested to help different rural communities, specifically when it comes to some of the hospitals and such in those areas. Talk about impact. What's being held up for Alabamians until we sign this continuing resolution?
Well, we're not going to let them repeal that health care section, for one thing, and that Alabama will get $100 million a year for 5 years just focused on rural health care. And it's I've been working with some folks who I think are doing it right. The Bibb County Medical Center, I think, is a model for the whole country. Frankly, I'm trying to get Dr. Oz to come down and visit. In terms of the immediate impact, there are about 7,000, maybe a little over 7,000 federal employees that live in Alabama that have been furloughed, and they're not getting paid right now. The WIC program, the Women's, Infant, and Children's program, will run out of money in the next few days. President Trump has offered to use the revenues that they've collected from the tariffs to continue funding that. I don't know if that's something that he has the executive authority to do, but I would certainly support it if we could get something through Congress to allow him to do that. So there'll be some impact. People who are in Alabama serving in the military come the 15th of this month will not get another paycheck until the shutdown's over. And but this is all, I mean, Chuck Schumer can end this tomorrow if he wants to. And just vote for this clean CR, and then we can have a discussion in the next reconciliation bill about some of these other policies that he's talked about.
And speaking of those 700,000 workers that are furloughed,
7,000.
It was mentioned the other day that they may or may not be paid. Do you know what's up with that? Because typically they would be paid.
Yeah, we've always paid them in arrears.
And so moving forward, give me a soundbite how you would like to see this go.
Well, I'd like for the Democrats, at least 7 or 8 of them, to come over and vote with the Republicans in the Senate and pass the continuing resolution, allow the government to function. And the reason this thing expires November 21st is that we were really close to getting our appropriations work done. We just needed a few more weeks. That's why we're having the continuing resolution. So I'd like to at least give our appropriators a chance to finish the job, both in the House and Senate, and then I think there'll be another reconciliation bill, and we can have other discussions about other policies.
Great. Let's come back here locally. Apparently there is a long wait time for fire trucks, ambulances. Do you know when and if we are going to be getting some more of those resources here?
No,
And is that a state thing? Talk to me about that.
that's really a state issue, and it's really a local issue. Municipalities buy their own fire trucks and equipment, their police cars and stuff. That's really not something that the federal government does.
Who approves the money for those things?
The state. Now, you've got local municipal fire departments and police stations that can apply for federal grants for different things. So we've helped a lot with local fire departments to get personal protective equipment, equipment that they use for rescue operations. But in terms of those big purchases for fire trucks and police cars and stuff, that comes out of local revenues, and it's a local decision.
Perfect. And then this one, because I don't know the history, so I'm going to have to read this one. The planned Beltline route appears to intersect with a proposed data center site in Bessemer. Have you discussed this conflict with ALDOT or local officials, and do you believe taxpayers deserve public transparency on whether the route or funding will have to change?
Well, I haven't talked with ALDOT about it, but the Beltline is one of the last parts of the Appalachian Highway Development System to be finished. So the funding comes out of that, and it can only be used for that. So I don't know, I haven't looked at where the intersection is and where it would have to go if you had to move it. But I think that's something that ALDOT and local authorities need to work out, because I think what they're looking at is building the big data center there. And one of the reasons I push so hard for the Northern Beltline is I think Alabama has a chance to compete with anybody in the country as a technology state.
Absolutely.
If we can create an area where tech companies can come, I think we can build a technology corridor, create one between Huntsville and Birmingham that will rival anybody else in the country. I think eventually would go all the way down to Mobile and even east and west. There's a lot being done at the University of Alabama, a lot being done at Auburn University, but right now, if you look at what's going on in Huntsville with Space Command going there, the Golden Dome's going to be built there, the missile defense system will be built there. We've already got all of these aerospace companies there, plus one of the top medical research facilities in the world in Hudson Alpha. The Human Genome Project, which used to be at Stanford University, has moved from there to Huntsville. And then when you combine that with UAB and Southern Research, Human Genome Projects and all those other things that I just mentioned, we really are in a position to set ourselves apart from other states. We just need to have the infrastructure that makes sense.
And last question, speaking of universities, a little birdie told me earlier in the week that we might be getting a Coast Guard Academy. Have you heard anything about that? And replacing the university that shut down mid-semester?
I heard that, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
I'm like you, someone just mentioned it to me, and it's the first I'd heard of it.
Okay.
That'd be
so
great,
much.
though.
It would be great. I think that would be a great use for that area as well. Let's see.
It's
fingers
interesting that
crossed.
it's Coast Guard.
Yeah, when we're not by the coast, right?
When we're not by the coast. So.
Awesome. Is there anything that you want to tell the people in your district about something that you're working on right now, or any hopes that you have for your district?
Well, I just changed subcommittee chairmanships on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and was back in July named chairman of the subcommittee on environment, which gives me jurisdiction over critical minerals and rare earth elements. And if people have been paying attention to what's going on in China, we're dangerously dependent on China for refined rare earth elements and critical minerals. We don't have a single major refinery for rare earth elements in the Western Hemisphere. If I said we didn't have one in the United States, that'd be problematic enough. But there's not one in the Western Hemisphere. There's only 9 in the world, and 8 of them are in China, and the other one's in Malaysia. So I was moved over to that committee to chair that subcommittee purposely, because that's going to be a top focus. It already is for the Trump administration and for the Energy and Commerce Committee. And we're doing a lot of work in that area right now, and it's going to have a big impact, I think, for the whole country, because we have to secure this supply chain, and it needs to be domestically secured. I keep having people say, well, we can mine this and mine that. We're already mining things. 86% of what we take out of the ground we send to China.
Really?
To be processed, and that is insane.
I did not know that.
You can't make your phone, you can't make your washing machine, you can't make a car, you can't make an F-35 fighter. I could go down the whole list of things that we would not be able to make if China cut us off from refined rare earths. We're talking about building 4 or 5 semiconductor plants in the United States. You can't make a microchip semiconductor without rare earth elements.
Well, we have an interesting relationship with China that got even more interesting, earlier this year. So let's hope that we keep that relationship.
Well, we can for a while, but we've got a window of opportunity here to secure this supply chain. And it's not just the United States. I've had diplomats from all over Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, the Indo-Pacific, Latin America in my office, because they all realize we're in the same boat. I was asked to speak. I was part of a panel with members of the European Parliament and a representative from Canada. And in the conversation, in that panel conversation, I made the point that the competition is not between the United States and Canada. It's not between the United States and Europe. It's between the West and China. And that we all need to realize this, and we need to sit down together realizing that we have some cultural differences and political differences, but we've got to get our act together in terms of our own national security and our own economic security. We're way too reliant on China. And it's not just critical minerals and rare earth elements. 80% of the ingredients for our pharmaceuticals either come from China or India, and a lot of the ingredients that India uses comes from China. So this is a critical moment in our history, and I think we've finally waked up to this threat, and we're doing something about it.